All right. So, bit of a personal question to start off. I hope that's all right. I would love to know, what does Earth Day mean to you, if anything?
Uh, let's go with yeah, great question. Earth Day for me is often very busy because it coincides with the launch of our store, which is imminent. But I think for most people, it's a reminder that we do live on a pretty precarious planet. It's something we've always taken for granted, but it's definitely something that is on the brink of collapse. So let's make sure every day is Earth Day and that we practice what we do for fun on Earth Day every day of the year. And on a large scale as well, because there's no way we're going to get out of this if it doesn't change from the top. So let's do our
Absolutely.
best, but also let's do more.
Yeah, I like that. I would love to hear from you if you could share a little bit more about the importance of gardening.
Yeah, I actually only recently got into gardening about maybe like 6 years ago. My parents used to always own the garden center, so it was always very hard to garden in the summer because we were all so very busy and we ran a garden center. So there's only so much time you can spend at your business garden and your at-home garden. But yeah, maybe like 6 years ago, I finally dug out grass from my parents' backyard when I still lived there. And I just got into gardening real hard and I fell in love with it right away. Nowadays, I have my own little backyard and I garden in little flower beds. I do mostly tomatoes and vegetables, but it's I don't know. It's frankly therapeutic. It's an exciting time. It's bizarre how it's a slow and quick exercise all at once. It's slow because nothing happens, and suddenly everything happens, and it's you're always surprised every day you visit the garden, especially in late June, August, or late July, August, sorry, where there's always a surprise in your garden. Just like constant entertainment. It's TikTok in your backyard, if you will, just constantly stimulating your brain. As an exercise, as a hobby, I find it very therapeutic. It's very calming. You're in complete control in a certain way about setting it up. But I guess now that I have children, but almost like a child, you kind of have to let them go after a while. You have to let your garden thrive on its own. And that's also hard because you can't control everything. You got to learn to roll with the punches. If you've got bugs, if you've got tomatoes that aren't blooming or tomatoes that aren't setting fruit, it's just something you kind of learn to enjoy and to be prepared for. It can be something that you need to succeed 100% because it's never going to be perfect.
Definitely. Just a bit of a fun question, especially because you brought up tomatoes. So, when I had a nice backyard and we created, yes, a garden like you were talking about, half of it was tomatoes because I love fresh salsa, fresh tomatoes. I would love to hear a silly question. What's your favorite thing to garden and that you get from?
I hate to be boring, but it also is tomatoes. There's just such a breadth of like options out there, and every year I'm sometimes gonna repeat one variety from last year that I really enjoyed, but most of the tomatoes I grew are fully new varieties I've never grown before. Partially because I have to test them for offering at the market at the garden center, but also because I don't know, there's just so many tomato sandwiches and salads you gotta make. Oh, a fresh caprese salad with a fresh basil you grew. It's just so easy. It's so wonderful in the summer. I love growing tomatoes. They're easy too. I find them very relatively easy. Like there's such a common vegetable or fruit to grow. So there's a lot of experience around the community to like ask questions and to learn. I've been trying to get into peppers. Not easy,
Harder
especially
here in Manitoba. Yeah.
yeah, we have such a short season. Unless you're growing like fairly standard, maybe a jalapeno or something that you can eat green, it's actually quite tough to get them to ripen before the first frost. I've also been obsessed for the past 2 years with growing sunflowers because they become so colossal. They actually act like a sort of fence for your yard, and they give like a little cozy vibe to your yard. They grow twice my height. It's quite frankly surprising. And you start them. It's one of the only things I start from seed because that's really the only way to grow sunflowers. You just pop a couple on the perimeter of your garden or your yard, and they just tower over you. It's quite magical.
That's amazing. I love it. Um, so I would love to hear too, like, how does buying local produce as like at St. Leon Garden fit into Earth Day? How does this all connect?
Yeah. Buying local has a ton of benefits and not just like economically, it's going to support your local economy more than buying overseas, but also the carbon footprint of something that was grown literally 100 kilometers away from your house or less than rather. Um, is drastically lower than the carbon footprint of something you're shipping from overseas. It's not always possible to eat local. We do live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where there is still quite a bit of snow outside on our parking lot right now. That said, when something is available local and it's relatively easy to access, and it usually is more affordable than an imported good, I think there's really no reason not to buy local. And that's not just because we sell local produce, of course. I'm biased, but it's also as a practice relatively easy, especially nowadays, and more affordable in most cases. And also, the carbon footprint of your produce is much lower. That includes everything from actually fresh produce, like fruits and vegetables that are grown here. Obviously, not pineapples and kiwis, but also prepared foods such as jams and other produce like products like that, rather, that are easily producible here, but that don't need to come from down the south of the states or any other country. So yeah.
Sorry, you brought it up, so I've got to. Nothing beats homemade jam. Like, oh my goodness. I don't know. And I've tried to make it. I've horrifically screwed it up. I've heard it's unscrewable, but I've
They
somehow
say
done it. If I see it at any like marketplace, any sort, I'm in. I'm
it's in
buying
your
some.
basket. 100%. Absolutely, you need to have it. Yeah, no, it's not even something I'm gonna try to recreate because the local producers of jams, there's so many and they're also delicious. So
Sure.
it's not gonna be my project. I'll
Yeah.
get someone else to do it for me. Yeah.
Speaking of, you're talking about, we live here in Winnipeg. I would love to know, when is St. Leon Garden officially open for the season?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was going to have a date for you today, but the snow's still around, and it's supposed to be some more snow perchance coming later this week. Typically, it's the late April, last week of April. This year, we're trying to hit the last weekend of April, but I honestly can't promise you anything. I'm so sorry. But we have to open for Mother's Day, which is going to be on the 8th this year. So it's going to be basically between the 29th of April and the 6th of May. So our vibe is going to be
Great.
that week. What's that,
Excellent.
sorry?
That's a great window. At least we
Yeah.
have an idea.
It's
And
always within those days, but this year is just unbelievable. And am I wrong to say we're waiting for more precipitation this coming
yes,
weekend? Yeah,
yes.
so it's just it's very unusual. I hope the fields aren't flooded. I know about a week ago we were all thinking we're fine, and maybe this next thing is going to be problematic. Um, but I knock on wood that it's not going to be the end of the world because we've had enough end of the world events, enough
Ag-
cataclysmic events.
Enough, enough.
That's it.
For somebody who might not know what St. Leon Gardens offers, could you just share a little bit in a nutshell what you guys offer?
Yeah, I'd invite everyone to come and swing by during the season to check out our store. We're basically like a farm market that's open 7 days a week. So imagine a regular grocery store but our focus is and has always been on supplying the best and the freshest local produce. We have connections with over 200 local producers. We've known them for years. We are very much connected with the local producers, so we often have access to not only the first, but some of the better local produce out there. Our goal has always been to improve the accessibility of local food. Like I was saying before, like it's easy to say buy local, but if there's no grocery store in my area that's selling local food 7 days a week, it's actually quite hard to get your hands on a local tomato when it's in season. So our goal has always been to alleviate that concern, make it as easy as possible to buy local, make it as affordable as possible, and making it as fun as possible. We have a garden center in the spring, so if people need bedding plants, tomato plants, vegetable plants, we're here to help them out. And again, we're open 7 days a week. And finally, when the season starts with local produce, it just kind of ramps up, and our main business then becomes local fruits and vegetables. And we're saying fruits and vegetables, but there's also, yeah, we're talking about jams, we're talking about sauces, we're talking about frozen meats, whatever you need. We're there. Again, open 7 days a week in the middle of St. Boniface, Winnipeg. So yeah, it's a fun time. It's cute.
Love
It's
it. Yes,
bilingual. It's yeah.
right on. It's right down the street from us, and you said jam, keyword, so I'm there.
Come on, babe.
Jam, tomatoes,
Absolutely.
good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Right on. Thank you so much for your time today, Colin. We are excited to share this with our listeners.
Thank you so much, Sylvia.